William Law was born in 1686 in Kingscliff, Northamptonshire, England. He began attending Emmanuel College at Cambridge in 1705. In 1711 he was chosen to be a Fellow of the college and was ordained in the Church of England. He remained there for the next 3 years. In 1714, George I took the throne after Queen Anne died. Law was unwilling to take the oath of allegiance to the new monarch. Because of this, his fellowship at the school was revoked, and with his ability to serve as a professor or a minister. He left the college and began staying in Putney and tutored the father of Edward Gibbon. He stayed in Putney for several years and accompanied his student to Cambridge. When his students decided to go abroad, Law remained in Putney and became the religious guide to the whole Gibbon family and several others. John and Charles Wesley were two of the people that sought his guidance. In 1740, William Law returned to Kingscliff, where he remained for the rest of his life. Since he was not allowed to preach anywhere, he wrote several books. These books include a practical treatise upon Christian perfection and a serious call to a devout and holy life. A serious call to a devout and holy life was written in 1728 in response to the Enlightenment. During this time, rationalism was at the forefront of philosophy. This was a time where there was heavy criticism towards Christianity and religion. One area is deism, which is the belief that God does not interact with humanity. One would be able to argue that if this is the case, there is no need to be devout or serious in their faith. In the book, Law will argue against this. He will argue that God is present and that it is our duty as Christians to pursue holiness and righteousness. Law's arguments can be summed up by one statement that he made in the book. The Son of God has redeemed us for only this end, that we should, by a life of reason and piety, live to the glory of God. This is the only rule and standard for every order and state of life. We are meant to glorify God through our life. Law makes it clear that this is to be done by everyone who calls themselves Christians, the rich and poor alike. In fact, he makes the argument that those that have more time, who work less, and who are wealthier, are to live a life of greater piety than those who have less, and those who have less are to make the most out of whatever they have. This principle extends to all aspects of life. Living a life of piety is to be charitable, humble, modestly dressed, pure, and so on. The Christian should not live in extravagance and be boastful. Rather, they should give more as they are able to. He gives an example of a woman who inherited a large fortune. This woman, who is a devout Christian, gives more money to the poor than she uses for her own needs. She feeds hungry children, gives them a place to stay, and even adopts some of them. Her free time is spent praying and reading Scripture. This is an example of a devout Christian. He also gives an example of a man with tuberculosis, who goes out of his way in spending large amounts of money on alcohol and other meaningless stuff, while not giving any attention to God. He dies and wasted all of that time and money on things that did not matter. Law then gives the same example, but instead of wasting all that money and time, the man devotes himself to the Lord and to giving of himself. This is by far a better life. In the first part of the book, it appears as if a life of piety and devotion would be a boring life. But Law later shows that a life of piety is a better life than chasing after false treasures and joy. He makes it clear that those that have an eternal joy waiting for them after death should pursue God and find joy in Him. Chasing after things of this world will leave a person empty and less off than when they started. But if they would pursue righteousness and holiness, they would live life to the fullest. A poor man can live a better life now with eyes towards the heavens than a rich man who is chasing more money. In the end, the poor man used the time he had wisely, while the rich man wasted it. Law also gives some practical advice on living a devout life. Start by praying. Start by taking time to sit in silence so you can get focused. Turn your eyes to the glory of God and use examples of the attributes of God. By doing so, he says it raises our hearts into lively acts of worship and adoration. When asking God for help, use examples of times that He has helped people in the Bible. This is not only going to give praise to Him, but it strengthens our faith because we are reminded of Christ's faithfulness. He also advises the reader to sing psalms and hymns. This increases our joy in God. As it increases our joy, it also increases our devotion. This book influenced many of the great preachers during that time, including John and Charles Wesley and George Whitefield. It also caused many people to turn back to God and pursue Him fully. The message within this book is just as needed then as it is now. We see within our own culture how easy it is to pursue quick pleasures, to have get-rich fast schemes and prosperity. We neglect the simplest aspects of Christian faith, reading the Bible and prayer. We even see churches amassing huge numbers with health and wealth messages. If it wasn't for how he wrote, William Law could have written this book yesterday. So many people, I included, choose fleeting happiness over everlasting joy. With all of this said, a serious call to a devout and holy life is a convicting warning to stop wasting our lives and to pursue God with all we are, all we have, and all that we do.